Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and talk about what's going to be on the final exam for this class. Make sure you know Title IX as well as Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, especially Title VII, which prohibits discrimination in hiring. So make sure you understand that and how you can't discriminate based off somebody's race, religion, national origin, so on. I know that the Latino population is currently the biggest minority group, and it's going to be the majority in California in probably about 10 to 12 years. Um, you know what separate but equal is and how that led to the legalized form of segregation coming out of Plessy versus Ferguson. No birth both the Urban League and the NAACP on how they were working for to try to integrate African Americans into society and to enfranchise them. So, the Urban League and the NAACP are both organizations that have been around since the early 1900s. Know how segregation ended and why did it end? Usually, it was not ended originally after the Civil War amendments were passed. Um, we still had Plessy versus Ferguson that was decided in the 1880ish, but that created that separate but equal doctrine, and you're still segregating places, even though in some instances it was illegal, and in the South there was really nobody there to enforce the law. And I think that is something that's important, where we have intentions by the court that were happening, but the local policy making officials didn't really buy into it. And eventually, this desegregation was accomplished by the use of military force, and we talked about some examples of that. Um, no, Martin Luther King participated in a nonviolent action, and understand that. Where no, where kind of the belief that is that we need a more diverse education system, because they believe that we learn from each other when we interact with people from different backgrounds, and I think that's very true. No, why feminist movements came out. Men were drinking, gambling, visiting prostitutes, engaging in domestic violence. Um, know what we mean by the equity feminism, gender feminism, postmodern feminism. Just go ahead and define those, and just know the general definitions of those. And currently, the National Organization of Women is the largest feminist organization today. And also kind of know that about 70% of the women are married women are in the workforce now. And we kind of talked about that and kind of found out that the reason being is that women are capable of being in the workforce, and also they need to be because of cost of living. Know the decisions in the following cases. So just know the basic decision. Lemon was religion. Gitlow was that clear and present danger standard that was established. Miller was the obscenity definition. MAP, which established the exclusionary rule to the Fourth Amendment. Gideon, which ensures that we all have a right to representation in criminal cases. Miranda, saying that we are supposed to be informed by the police when we're being arrested of our constitutional rights to not self-incriminate. Griswold establishes a right to privacy, which was extended to Roe, where Roe protects women's reproductive rights in the first trimester. And as we see in the Supreme Court, it's currently maybe under attack right now. Know that the Patriot Act, which we talked about, was a very complex law that was passed in a short amount of time. And one of the themes in this class that we have been talking about is during the course of history, we've had civil liberties attempted to be restricted. So that's what I kind of want you to bring in from that. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. So the next one is public policy. Social Security budget. The biggest item in our budget is Social Security. Sometimes people think it's the military, but it's actually Social Security budget. And then right now, currently, in order to understand what some of the things are here with regards to the capping of entitlements, it's widely recognized that we need to cap entitlements, much like Social Security, much like Medicare. But there's instances where it's hard to agree among people with different ideologies on what those caps should be. So it's something simple as that. When we talk about Social Security and Medicare taxes, understand that that's half paid by us and half paid by our employer. So that's something that employer definitely has to take into consideration when they're going to hire somebody. Can they finance half of a person's Social Security income? Taxation, which is like roughly 4% of your income. So it could be, a high number in some instances. And know that the federal government will fund itself through taxation and through Social Security, payroll taxes, as well as regulations. Know what capital gains tax is. Capital gains is where you're taxed on the money you make on investments. And when we talk about regulation, remember regulations are kind of the cost of doing business, and that cost is passed on to the business owners, workers and employees, and also consumers. So say for instance they want to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour. Eventually that's going to be filtered down to us as consumers and as employees and stuff like that. So know about Reagan. Reagan was facing high unemployment and inflation. Was involved in the Iran-Contra affair, which was a violation of the Bolin Amendment. Kind of know what happened there. We were trading arms to Iran, and the profits were then funneled to a anti-communist group in Nicaragua. Oliver North was the lieutenant colonel that was in charge of that, and he was ultimately the one to take the fall. Know a little bit about Reaganomics and how George H.W. Bush referred to that as voodoo economics or supply side economics, where you cut taxes on the very rich and then that money will filter down to the lower earners. And as part of that, when we talk about Reagan's stance on social welfare, he cut social welfare, cut taxes, but in turn he also increased military spending, which led to a deficit. And we had, Reagan's administration led to the largest federal deficit at that time. Reagan was also successful in breaking up the air traffic controllers union, so that's something I also wanted you to understand. And a lot of Reagan's foreign policies were dealing with the Soviet Union and communism and the tail end of the Cold War. Know about California and some of the education budget. Currently, we spend more money on prisoners than we do students. We have problems in in California like water, and kind of the fact that there is private ownership of water, and that makes it a contentious issue. And kind of going with some of the things that we kind of look at here. In some of the budgeting problems, here, especially with the education budget, where most of the budget is spent on salaries, and we're already limited with Prop 13 with a 1% property tax cut, and we derive a lot of the budget for California's education budget from things like state tax and property tax and all that. But it's really interesting to kind of look at it and make the kind of the argument that maybe there's some things we can do to get more funding for schools and stuff like that. So that's basically what I got. Remember, the United States isn't required to have a balanced budget, and that's kind of what I wanted you guys to all understand. Okay, thank you.